105 Network. This is OpenLine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to OpenLine. Glad you're with us tonight. We are talking about some interesting stuff. What can we learn from the labor shortage that we have been experiencing and are experiencing? And how can we make the workplace more diverse? Why is that important? Why are we hearing so much about that lately? Certainly happy to have with us our guest, Sharon Smith-Akinsanya. She is a workplace consultant, the CEO of Rae Mackenzie Group, and joining us via Zoom. Right there. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Ben.
All right, so let's talk about all of this. You've been interviewed by all kinds of people. Good Morning America, all of this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the labor shortage. What can we learn from the labor shortage that we've been experiencing, are experiencing?
Well, I mean, the thing about it is that, we're experiencing a great resignation. People are understanding from the pandemic that they have choices. They're understanding that they like the idea of being able to put their chicken in the oven at 3 o'clock and get a dinner on the table at 5:30. They like being at home and being able to relax. And people are starting to think about how they want their quality of life. And so, so they're leaving the workplaces to do different things, start their own businesses. And the other part about the labor shortage is that we are missing out on our underrepresented members of the population in certain segments. So, we used to be in a position because of our unemployment rate to be able to sort of dismiss or forget about certain segments of the population. But now we need every able body to be working. And so we're starting to rethink about things like, ex-felons, right? How do we train everybody in the population to be able to use their hands? Do we need 4-year degrees, right, to really learn how to do app development or help desk, right? So we're just really rethinking that. And so we're running out of people. And there's a demographic shift that's coming down the pike. And so we're going to have to rethink how we think about making sure that we have enough workers to remain competitive. With the underrepresented members of the population that we talked about, the forgotten people. Now, and then number two, we've got the professionals, right, who are saying, you know what, I've just had it. I am going to do something different. I'm going to start my own business. And then when you talk about being professionals of color, the situation gets even worse. So we can get into that.
We will. And I want to get into all that. That's fascinating. And this notion of we don't have enough workers and this great resignation, that's obviously come about since the pandemic. Is that here to stay, or is that temporary? Once, inflation starts hitting everybody and they start raising interest rates and things get back, I mean, will then we all be kind of back to where we were and there'll be layoffs and that kind of thing? Or have things changed?
No, I think we're going to be in this situation. I think that we're going to have a lot of work to do to fill these open roles and remain competitive. We're not doing great, when we think about preparing our young people, for STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math. We're sort of falling behind a bit if you look at the statistics. So we just got to do a better job then of creating a pipeline and making sure that we are out there advertising attractive industries and getting our young people to think about careers of the future. And so we just got to dig in and make things happen. And like I said earlier, we got to train our workforce. Everybody, we don't need another vice president of marketing. Okay, what we need is we need people who could do stuff with their hands, working on infrastructure, construction. We need mortgage workers. We need different types of skills, but you don't need a 4-year degree to do everything. So we got to rethink it. You know how it is. You've seen these job descriptions. Well, you need, 1,800 years of this and, 4 years of that. But really, do I? So we've got to rethink that. So that
do you think they are? I think that's fascinating. Do you think they are rethinking that?
Oh, absolutely.
I know for a fact. Does say you need a college degree, or minimum is college degree and whatever experience. Do you think they are rethinking things?
No, I know they are, so I mean, I live in the market with nearly 18 Fortune 500 companies, and I work with many of them, and I know that HR and, the chief human resources officers are really rethinking how they think about acquiring talent and what's really needed. Because here's the shift, right? Now employees are in the catbird seat, candidates who are looking, right, to maybe stay in the workforce, they're in the catbird seat. They're interviewing corporations just as hard as corporations are interviewing them. So it is, and so those corporations that I work with specifically, they're absolutely rethinking it. Do we need 5 years, or do we need 2 years? Could we bring them in and maybe train? So all of that conversation is starting to happen, because corporations don't want to lose their competitive edge, so they have to rethink it.
Well, I like hearing that employees are in the catbird seat. I kind of like that. And part of me thinks it's going to go away, because I've been around when they haven't been in the catbird seat. You're saying, I mean, will it go away? How tenuous is the employee hold on the catbird seat?
So I think that it's going to be here for a minute, because I think that corporations have learned through the pandemic that they have to be nicer. They have to be kinder. They have to do a better job of valuing their employees. They have to do a better job of figuring out how to create a more diverse and equitable and inclusive workplace. They have to figure out how to keep those employees happy, because they will be poached. Top talent, right, is very expensive to recruit. So corporations have, through the pandemic, they say, oh, we gotta switch this up, okay? We gotta switch this up, and they are switching it up and being more kinder and gentler and understand more flexible. As you are hearing, a lot of corporations are saying, you know what? If you want to do hybrid, just stay hybrid. Whatever you want, we're working it out. You want to work in Peru? No problem. So a lot of that is happening, where before the pandemic, it'd be unheard of, for a corporation to allow, their top talent to work from home or work, abroad, or it just wouldn't happen. So things are shifting, and they're shifting for the better.
That's very interesting. And we hear over and over, every, let's say presidential election, they talk about wages haven't really gone up that much, wages this, wages that, and you could look at it, and they haven't gone up in comparison to like housing prices and that kind of thing. Do you think this leads to higher wages? Are we at that point?
Well, I can tell you it just depends on, what skill set, what level, you are in your career. At the professional level, wages are incredible. At the professional level, packages are amazing. So they are staying in line or more than with inflation and growth. Where we have to do the work is making sure everybody's making $15, $16, $17, $18 an hour to be able to keep up with inflation and things like that. I mean, gone are like $7, $8 an hour jobs. That's just not even happening. So part of the reason why we have this labor shortage is, the companies have to catch up. Employers are saying, I'm not working for $15 an hour. I need 20. I'm not working for $12 an hour. I need 15. I can't feed my family. By the time I get there, my whole check is eaten up. So I might as well figure out something else to do. I might as well do Uber, DoorDash, where I can control my hours and still figure it out. So we have choices. So I think it just depends, Ben, where you are, on your career ladder. But gone are the days of trying to get somebody to come to work for $8, $9, $10 an hour. That's not happening. And I tell you, and the people that know this more than anyone is the restaurant industry.
Right.
They're just not having it. So
what about
people are rethinking it?
The other issue I want to get into is diversity. And what has the pandemic, what has this whole thing we've been talking about, the Great Resignation, this shift in the workplace, what has it meant for the focus on diversity, moving toward more diversity? What's happening there?
No, I think it's a good question. So there was a big shift, in May, right, of 2020, when George Floyd was murdered, actually 20 minutes from where I'm sitting right now in downtown Minneapolis. So many corporations, because we all saw that, and many corporations, as you know, made a lot of pledges and promises to do a better job at closing the racial wealth gap, doing a better job at corporate social responsibility, doing a better job at promoting talent of color, making sure that they were focused on Black lives, whether it be home ownership or whatever their thing is. So there was a lot of pledges and promises. And so so there's some focus there, right? But here's what's true. A lot of pledges and promises were made, but they're not keeping them necessarily. Not everybody, but not necessarily. So, but here's what's true. Most major corporations understand that they have to do a better job at recruiting top talent of color. They understand from a business imperative, they have to figure out a better way to have a relationship with Black professionals and other professionals of color because of the demographic shift. We will soon be a majority nation or majority minority, however you want to think about it. And they understand that they have to build that relationship in order to make sure that they maintain their competitive edge. And what do I mean by that? 75% of all white people, Ben, can go through their life and not have an authentic relationship with a person that doesn't look like them. And that's nobody's fault. That's just a fact when you are a majority, right? So when you think about how to recruit and retain top talent, we recruit who we know and we refer who we know. So when you think about, people in top positions, they're running out of folks to refer. So what I say to my CEOs and CHROs, I ask them these questions, Ben. I said, look, who do you call when you want to celebrate? Who do you call when you're sad? Who is on the Christmas list to come to your home for the celebration? Who are your golfing buddies? Who are you having lunch with next week? And if it looks like the same people that you've always done, then we're going to have to make a shift. And so I talk about how you got to really get proximate and build stronger relationships with people who don't look like you, because you need to lead out loud and set that example for the rest of the team. And it really does change your life. And so we believe, and I talk about it in my book, Colorful, how relationship build is so critical to creating a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive workplace. Because when you have authentic relationships like that, you learn from one another and you become more empathetic to both sides. You can be in a safe, brave space to ask questions that you probably wouldn't have normally asked. You learn things. And so we all need to do that. And so what I teach at the Rae Mackenzie Group with talent acquisition leaders is exactly that. How do you build that relationship with that professional of color that you want to recruit? What do you say inside of a networking event, right, where you're not maybe used to having that interaction? So we teach how to actually have that communication and build that relationship, because it's like dating. If you can't get to first base, you're definitely not going to get the second. And Head and Shoulders taught us it's hard to get a second chance to make a first impression. Don't act like you don't remember that Head and Shoulders commercial.
Oh, I definitely remember that commercial. No, I love that. I love that commercial. You're saying then it's not just about, when you talk about recruiting minorities, you're saying you need to look at who your friends are. It's not just about who you're working with and that kind of thing. It's about who do you hang out with at Christmas and on the weekends. And that's fascinating. If
you're really trying to recruit, it's like, think about, salespeople inside of radio stations or TV stations. If you're really trying to build a relationship, you got to hang out with advertisers. You got to hang out. You got to think about how do you network properly in order to have a reputation where that talent or that prospect would even consider you. So we have to do the right things, because guess what? Everybody's paying attention. There's at least 15 reporters that are doing nothing but just following corporations who made those pledges and promises that we talked about to see how they are doing. Guess what? Top talent who are considering where they want to lend their treasure and lend their time, they're asking the tough questions. Do I see anybody that looks like me at the top? Will I have an opportunity to get leadership roles, be promoted? Will I get a chance to, be in the C-suite one day? What are my possibilities if I decide to lend my treasure to said corporation? Where can I find the link on your website that talks to me about where your CEO stands and the type of things you're doing in community so that I can decide whether or not my values align with your values and whether or not your values align with mine?
And so when you talk to these corporate leaders, what do they tell you has prevented them in the past from advancing more diversity? What do they say are the barriers?
Well, in the past, it hasn't been a priority. It just hasn't been a priority. It wasn't like, oh, we're not going to do that. Oh, we're not. It just hasn't been as much of a priority as it is right now. You have to compete for top talent of color, or else your competition will leave you in the dust, because professionals of color are your future workforce. So you've got to figure out a way how to make sure that your company stands apart and that top talent is in a position to consider you. There's so many choices. There's so many options. The biggest thing that people are telling me, Ben, is, the minute that I get an awesome talent, an awesome recruit, somebody's trying to steal them. So the folks are poaching people all over the country.
That's what I would think you were told. I would think you were told, we do our best, but either we can't find it or they're in such demand, we lose them, and, we're doing our best, we just can't, it's not happening.
That second chapter of my book is I just can't find professionals of color. And that is just not true. And so that's what we teach our corporations and our talent how to dig in so they can stop this foolishness with poaching. If you're not networking properly, if you're not building relationships, if you're not having your messages in the right place, then all you're going to do is just be doing this revolving circle. You have to get creative, and create a pipeline. And Ben, here's the thing, honestly, let's just cut to the chase. We all know that when CEOs or big bosses decide, when they decide that a change is going to be made, I want to make sure that there's more African Americans on my board. I want more African Americans in sales. I want more Latinos here. It's going to happen. When leaders decide, it happens. So that's the first thing that has to happen. Corporations and CEOs and the board have to be committed to their commitment to create a more diverse and equitable and inclusive workplace. Once that happens, they just have to then just make sure that they have the external resources and internal resources to be able to get it done, meaning to set realistic goals about where you want to see yourself in the next 5 years. And then hold yourself accountable by creating that board of directors, not the big board, sort of that personal diversity board of directors, right, that you can always turn to hold yourself accountable. See, when you get serious about it, you will then get the tools you need to put the resources in place to make sure that you're getting it done.
And then, all right, we have to go to commercial. One other quick question. Do you feel like they are serious this time? So you said there are journalists that are following these companies that made these pledges, and so is it really happening this time, or are we seeing just more talk?
They're more serious, but not enough CEOs have made the decision to be committed to their commitment and lean in and be on the front lines. And I did an op-ed yesterday where I talked about the parallels real quick between the Zelensky model and the Putin model. And I said a lot of CEO corporations are really, phoning it into their generals instead of leaning in like Zelensky, to make this thing happen. You got to be on the front lines with your people.
Very interesting. All right, we will take some calls. Mike, others, hold on the line. If you want to call in, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We'll take a break. Be back right after this.